Live.
All right. Hi, I'm Tim Zolezzi, and I am a sociology teacher at Berkeley High School. I'm also the department head for the history team at Berkeley High School. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about my presentation. I gathered the data for my presentation online and by getting surveys from students online. I processed the information from my presentation using the internet and computer technology, and I am now presenting it to you using computer and technology. The reality of the world today is that students need to know how to use technology. But a lot of educators hit a roadblock because when they think about assigning work that has to do with technology, they think there's a big equity issue here because lots of my students don't have access to computers at home, don't have access to internet at home, and so how can I assign these types of assignments knowing that certain subsets of my population, the ones who are struggling the most typically, can't complete these assignments. And so they say, it's an equity issue, so I just stick to paper. But I would argue that it's a bigger equity issue to not give students these skills in this world. Because if they don't have them, what jobs are they qualified for? So I think that we have to really investigate ways in which we're training our kids to use technology, but also recognizing what kind of access they have outside of the four walls of school. So what I did was I talked to a lot of students, and I talked to a lot of teachers, and I wanted to find out what kind of access they had to technology. And I quickly found out that many students don't have access to computers at home, but that doesn't matter because they have access to their phones. I found out a lot of students are doing work on their phones, 5-page papers on their phones. So clearly they found a way to navigate the digital world without having the hardware. And so I thought, well, that's excellent. I don't think that that's a permanent solution, but maybe I'll shift my focus a little bit. And I thought, you know, since they're doing work on their phones, what do they still need? And that's wireless access. They need wireless internet. So I found out that many students don't have the wireless internet at home, and so they are using their data plans, which can be very expensive and charge their parents a lot of money. The parents might not know it until the bill arrives, or they can get cut off. So what I did was I started talking to people. I did several interviews. I did an interview with the head of technology at Berkeley High School, Matt Alvinson. I did an interview with a librarian at the Berkeley Public Library. I did an interview with the head of the College Career Center, where a lot of students go to use technology. It's open until 6 o'clock every day, and it's a great cross-section of the students of Berkeley High School. They all utilize it, and it's packed. Every computer is full. And I interviewed several students in the College Career Center. I did informal interviews with about 10 to 12 students, and then I interviewed the head of technology for the whole district at Berkeley High School. I also collected 46 surveys about students and their wireless usage and where they get access to wireless. And I did a community map of all the free Wi-Fi in the lowest income zip code in Berkeley, which is South Berkeley 94702. I drove around with a friend and had him write down the addresses, and we wrote them all down. And this is what we found. We found that there are only 7 spots in South Berkeley that have free wireless. 5 of them are cafes, which typically require that you purchase something. One of them is a laundromat, don't have to purchase anything there. And one of them is the South Branch of the Berkeley Library. Here's a little bit of the data that I found from the student surveys about public library usage. Students aren't using the public library. It's a phenomenal resource, and I'll talk about why, but students just aren't using it. And I asked them why. I said, why don't you go there? Like, do you know the amazing things that they offer? And there's a few different reasons. One was a residual fear from not returning a book from when they were in 3rd or 4th grade. And they thought, the second I walk in there, something's going to happen to me. The second fear was that, well, you know, you have a time limitation on how long you can use those computers, and I need to use it more than the 45 minutes or 1 hour, depending on where in the library you're using the computer. So it just doesn't work for me. And then the third reason was just a lack of information. I found out that the Berkeley Public Libraries are typically open somewhere until 6 or until 8 o'clock at night, and it kind of rotates which ones are open at 6 and which ones are stay open until 8 o'clock. So there is the problem of when are students doing work. If they're waiting until 8 o'clock to do work, then they don't have the access to the public library. So what were my findings? Well, sadly, these are the sad findings. One, that students aren't really using the Berkeley Public Library, which is a shame for reasons I'll get to in just a minute. Two, no one has formally collected any kind of data tracking student technology access outside of the classroom in Berkeley Unified School District. Not the school site, not the head of technology at Berkeley High, not the principal of Berkeley High, not the head of technology in Berkeley Unified. They said, we are mainly concerned with troubleshooting, fixing printers for teachers, helping teachers use PowerSchool, and it's not even on their radar. So it really shocked me that no one's formally collected this data. I couldn't believe it. I tried at the last minute to collect my share of data, but it does not in any way really represent Berkeley High School. I got 46 surveys, and it's a high school of 3,400. So I think that it would be excellent if that was something they tackled in the future. And then lastly, there is very little access to free wireless internet in South Berkeley. I also found, this was probably the crown jewel that I found in this whole assignment, Comcast, if you qualify for free and reduced lunch, your family also qualifies for $10 a month internet access through Comcast. Now, you might be wondering about how good that quality is, and from some message boards I heard it wasn't amazing, but it's internet access nonetheless, and it's $10 a month. And that kind of blew my mind. Second, because we all know Comcast goes from 70 to 80 and 90 to 200. So, the public library has phenomenal resources. I was talking to the librarian. They subscribe to scholarly databases. They have technology classes once a week. They have something called tutor.com that they subscribe to that has live tutors for free in 15 different subjects. And last, and this is something that we in PLI can definitely use, they have something called Grade My Paper, or like paper feedback, I think it's called. And essentially, you submit it the same day. They will get back to you with feedback about your essay. That's an amazing resource that students could be using. So my big question was, how do I connect students to these cheap or free options for wireless, and how do I also connect them to the amazing resources of the public libraries? All right, so I thought about a few potential solutions. One was partnering with a tech company, because they are ubiquitous now in the Bay Area, partnering with them and getting free wireless for South Berkeley, the whole zip code. Now, there's something that was talked about with the city council about 10 years ago, and it hasn't really, from my research, been mentioned since, about getting free wireless for the whole city of Berkeley. The idea has kind of dropped, and I wonder how much Comcast had a hand in that. But anyway, so that's not really being discussed, but it has happened, especially down in Silicon Valley, where tech companies will pay to set up free wireless internet in poor communities. But I thought, that's a really ambitious goal, and the way I interpreted this project was something that could be really realistic and manageable. So the second idea I had was to create some flyers about what goes on with library services, and maybe even get some librarians to talk to teachers and train teachers about the resources available so teachers could incorporate it into their lesson plans. And then lastly was to spread the word about Comcast's cheap internet plan. And I decided that was probably the most solid, logical, practical goal. So I thought, when do most students and their parents show up to school? What is the day that we'll see them? And besides graduation, which is too late, it's registration day. That's the day that parents come, particularly freshman year, to be with their kids, to support their kids. And so I thought, what about just having a table there, where there was 2 parent volunteers or 2 student volunteers that could sit down, show them about the option, have them sign up. I found out that it's non-contractual, so it's not the case that they're locked into a year or 2-year contracts. It's a month-to-month thing. So they could sign up on-site, and they would have this subsidized service that they could use. I also thought about creating flyers that they could take home if a parent felt uncomfortable or couldn't make it in. The child could take home a flyer about the internet service. I also thought about a phone blast, which you all know about. It's the ways in which the school contacts the families. We can easily do a phone blast home telling parents about this cheap internet option. And what do we need from the community? Well, thinking about the wireless access, we could speak with the 7 places that provide the wireless in South Berkeley and ask them to let students use it, free without having some sort of purchasing of a good. But in reality, from my survey data, I found that students don't really go to wireless cafes to use their technology. I thought about talking to the library about forgiving fines. It turns out you can still use all the library resources as long as your fines don't exceed $100. So I think if students knew that, they might be a little more willing to go in and get over their fear. We could also have, like I said earlier, a librarian lead workshops for teachers so that teachers could start incorporating some of these resources into their lesson plans. And then, of course, we need Comcast to continue with their subsidized internet. And the last piece was kind of my learnings or my takeaways. So what did I learn? Students, teachers, and even the district have limited knowledge of the existing technological resources outside of the school. They know what they have in school, but they don't know about students' lives outside of school. Secondly, free wireless internet, like almost all other resources, is scarce in poor neighborhoods. And lastly, teachers should not shy away from assigning technology-based assignments, but should consider how they can provide greater access within the class period. If you are going to assign something that involves technology, which you should show the students how to do it and then give them the time to do it in class. And that's all.